What if Vader never needed the suit? Let's explore the depths of it in the video. The crimson glow of Mustafa's lava rivers illuminates two figures locked in mortal combat, their lightsabers casting dancing shadows across the hellish landscape. The air itself seems to burn as blue and red plasma clash again and again, each impact sending showers of sparks cascading into the molten depths below. Obi-Wan Kenobi's weathered face is etched with profound sorrow as he desperately parries another vicious strike from his former apprentice. Sweat beads on his forehead, mixing with tears he refuses to acknowledge. Anakin Skywalker, now calling himself Darth Vader, moves with terrifying grace despite the corruption that has consumed his soul. His yellow eyes burn with Sith fire, reflecting the volcanic hell around them. Every movement is precise, deadly, fueled by years of rage, loss, and the dark whispers of his new master. His lightsaber carves through the superheated air with murderous intent, seeking to end the life of the man who was once his mentor, his father figure, his dearest friend. "You have done that yourself," Obi-Wan shouts over the deafening roar of the lava falls, his voice cracking with emotion as he barely deflects another strike aimed at his heart. The heat is overwhelming, turning every breath into a struggle, but he cannot give up. Not on Anakin. Not even now. Anakin's response is a wordless snarl of fury as he leaps from platform to platform, using the Force to enhance his already formidable acrobatic abilities. His cape billows behind him like the wings of some dark angel as he pursues his former master with relentless determination. "Don't lecture me, Obi-Wan. I see through the lies of the Jedi. I do not fear the dark side, as you do." Their lightsabers meet in a shower of sparks. The weapons lock together as the two men strain against each other, faces inches apart. Obi-Wan can see the boy he once knew buried deep beneath the surface of this monster, and it breaks his heart. "I have brought peace, freedom, justice, and security to my new empire." Anakin growls through gritted teeth. "Your new empire?" Obi-Wan pushes back, managing to break the saber lock and create some distance between them. "Anakin, my allegiance is to the Republic, to democracy." The hurt in Anakin's eyes is quickly replaced by fury as he unleashes a barrage of strikes that force Obi-Wan to give ground. "If you're not with me, then you're my enemy." Each word is punctuated by a vicious slash that comes closer and closer to finding its mark. Obi-Wan's heart shatters as he realizes there is no reaching the young man he helped raise. "Only a Sith deals in absolutes," he says quietly, his own lightsaber coming up in a defensive position. "I will do what I must." "You will try!" Anakin roars, launching himself into a spinning attack that showcases the raw power flowing through him. The dark side has enhanced his abilities beyond anything Obi-Wan has ever witnessed, but it has also made him reckless, overly aggressive. The duel rages across multiple platforms suspended over the lava flows, each man pushing the other to their absolute limits. They leap impossible distances, deflect blaster bolts from the automated mining equipment, and use every surface as a potential weapon in their deadly dance. The facility around them begins to collapse under the stress of their battle, metal beams warping from the heat and crashing into the molten rivers below. As they fight, memories flash through Obi-Wan's mind. Anakin as a 9-year-old boy on Tatooine, so full of hope and wonder. His first lightsaber training sessions, awkward but eager to learn. The pride in his eyes when he was promoted to Padawan. Their adventures during the Clone Wars, fighting side by side as brothers. All of it leading to this moment of ultimate betrayal and loss. Anakin's thoughts are darker, fueled by the Sith philosophy that has consumed him. He remembers every perceived slight, every moment he felt the Jedi held him back, every time they questioned his methods or his motives. The loss of his mother, the secret of his marriage, the fear of losing Padme, all of it twisted by Palpatine's manipulations into righteous anger against the very people who had tried to help him. "I have failed you, Anakin," Obi-Wan admits, as they pause momentarily on a narrow bridge of cooling lava rock. "I have failed you. I should have known the Jedi were plotting to take over." Anakin shoots back, his voice hoarse from the superheated air. "Anakin, Chancellor Palpatine is evil. From my point of view, the Jedi are evil." The words hang in the air between them like a death sentence. And both men know that there can be no reconciliation now. "Well, then you are lost." Obi-Wan's voice carries infinite sadness as he raises his lightsaber for what he knows will be their final exchange. They clash again, this time with desperate fury, each knowing that only one will leave this place alive. Their lightsabers move in blurs of light, creating complex patterns in the air as they test each other's defenses. Anakin's style has become more aggressive, influenced by his embrace of the dark side, while Obi-Wan relies on his perfected defensive techniques and deep understanding of his opponent's fighting patterns. The battle carries them to a collection plant built over one of the main lava rivers. The heat here is so intense that the air shimmers and warps, making it difficult to see clearly. Both men are pushed beyond their physical limits, their robes singed and torn, their breathing labored from the toxic atmosphere, yet neither will yield. In a moment of supreme overconfidence, Anakin attempts to use his superior raw power to overwhelm Obi-Wan's defenses. He leaps high into the air, intending to bring his lightsaber down in a killing blow that will end the duel once and for all. But Obi-Wan has been waiting for exactly this kind of reckless attack, and his response is swift and terrible. The blue lightsaber moves in a perfect arc, severing both of Anakin's legs at the knee and his left arm at the elbow in a single, precise strike. The young Sith crashes to the ground in agony, his lightsaber skittering away across the blackened metal platform. For a moment, the only sounds are his screams of pain and the constant rumble of the lava flows. Obi-Wan stands over his fallen apprentice, his own lightsaber still humming in his hands, his face a mask of grief and regret. This is the moment where everything should end, where he should walk away and let the lava flows claim their victim. But as he looks down at Anakin's pain-racked face, something stops him. "You were the chosen one," he cries out, his voice breaking. "It was said that you would destroy the Sith, not join them. Bring balance to the Force, not leave it in darkness." Anakin's response is a mixture of pain and hatred. "I hate you." The words come out as a strangled gasp, but the venom behind them is unmistakable. Obi-Wan takes a step back, then another, preparing to leave this place and never return. But then he sees Anakin beginning to slide toward the edge of the platform, toward the lava flow that will certainly kill him. In that instant, despite everything that has happened, Obi-Wan sees not Darth Vader, but the little boy from Tatooine. who had no father, who looked up at him with such trust and hope. "No," Obi-Wan whispers, extending his hand. The Force flows through him, not in anger or aggression, but in compassion and love. He pulls Anakin back from the brink, away from the killing heat that would have destroyed his airways and left him a broken shell of himself. Anakin crashes back onto the solid platform, his clothes smoking from the brief exposure to the intense heat. His face is burned, but not melted, his respiratory system intact, though damaged by the toxic fumes. Most importantly, his vocal cords remain undamaged, allowing him to speak without mechanical aid. "Why?" Anakin gasps, staring up at his former master with confusion and pain. "Why did you save me?" Obi-Wan's answer comes through tears that he no longer bothers to hide. "Because despite everything you've done, despite everything you've become, you're still my brother, Anakin, and I couldn't bear to watch you die, even if you hate me for it." The sound of approaching ships cuts through the moment. Obi-Wan knows he has only seconds before Imperial forces arrive. He looks down at Anakin one last time, memorizing the face that he may never see again. "Goodbye, old friend. May the Force be with you, always." With that, he turns and runs, using the Force to enhance his speed as he races toward his hidden ship. Behind him, Anakin's agonized cries echo across the hellish landscape. But they are the cries of someone who will live, not die. When Emperor Palpatine arrives with his personal medical team and a squad of clone troopers, he finds a very different scene than the one he had envisioned. Yes, his new apprentice is gravely wounded, but not destroyed, not dependent. The young man lying on the platform is broken in body, but not in spirit. Scarred, but not mutilated beyond recognition. "Get him to the medical bay immediately," Palpatine orders, his yellow eyes gleaming with interest as he studies Anakin's condition. "Use the best equipment we have. I want a full analysis of his injuries and prognosis for recovery." As the medical droids work to stabilize Anakin's condition and prepare him for transport, Palpatine's mind races with the implications. He had planned to create a broken servant, wholly dependent on his machinery and his goodwill. Instead, he might have something far more useful, a powerful apprentice who could serve without the limitations of extensive life support systems. The journey back to Coruscant is tense and uncertain. Anakin drifts in and out of consciousness, his dreams filled with visions of Padme and nightmares of his failure to save her. When he awakens briefly in the medical bay, he finds Palpatine sitting beside his bed, studying reports from the medical droids. "Master," Anakin whispers, his voice hoarse but human. "Padme, is she?" Palpatine's expression assumes the perfect mask of paternal concern that he has perfected over the years. "I'm afraid your wife died, my young apprentice. It seems in your anger, you killed her." The words hit Anakin like a physical blow, and he screams in anguish. But unlike the mechanical bellow that might have been, this is a purely human sound of grief and rage. Palpatine watches with satisfaction as his apprentice's pain feeds into the dark side, making him stronger even as it destroys him emotionally. "She was alive!" Anakin protests weakly. "I felt it! She was alive!" "I'm sorry, but the medical records are clear." Palpatine lies smoothly. "The trauma of your confrontation on Mustafar was too much for her weakened condition. The children died with her. Anakin's grief is overwhelming, but it is not the broken despair that Palpatine had hoped for. Instead, it is a focused, burning hatred that will fuel his dark side abilities without completely destroying his capacity for independent thought. This is both more useful and more dangerous than the Emperor had intended. The reconstruction process takes place in the deepest levels of the Imperial Medical Center on Coruscant, in laboratories that few beings know exist. The team of medical experts, cybernetic specialists, and dark-side adepts work for months to rebuild Anakin Skywalker into Darth Vader. But the process is fundamentally different from what it might have been. Instead of the cumbersome life support systems that would have been necessary for a more severely damaged subject, Vader's new body is a streamlined fusion of organic tissue and advanced cybernetics. His legs are replaced with prosthetics that provide superhuman strength and speed, calibrated to respond to his force-enhanced reflexes. His left arm becomes a work of art in metal and synthetic materials, stronger than flesh but indistinguishable in its range of motion and sensitivity. Most importantly, his torso and head remain largely intact. His lungs, while scarred by the toxic atmosphere of Mustafar, can still function independently. His heart beats on its own, strong and steady. His vocal cords remain undamaged, allowing him to speak with his natural voice rather than through mechanical filters. The armor that is created for him serves a different purpose than life support. It is designed for protection, intimidation, and enhancement of his already formidable abilities. The suit includes climate control systems that allow him to function in any environment, strength amplifiers that increase his physical capabilities, and advanced sensors that supplement his force perception. The helmet is perhaps the most significant change. Rather than being a necessary component for breathing, it serves as an advanced tactical display and communication system. Most importantly, it can be removed at will, allowing Vader to reveal his face when he chooses to do so. This flexibility will prove crucial in the years to come. When Anakin Skywalker next awakens, he does so as Darth Vader, Dark Lord of the Sith, but he awakens as himself. Not as a diminished shadow dependent on machines for survival. His first breath is drawn through his own lungs, his first words spoken with his own voice. "What is thy bidding, my master?" The question comes out clear and strong, carrying an undertone of power that sends shivers through the medical staff present for his awakening. Emperor Palpatine smiles with genuine pleasure as he looks upon his creation. "Rise, Lord Vader. Your training has only just begun." The figure that stands is imposing and terrible, clad in black armor that seems to absorb light itself. But when Vader moves, it is with fluid grace rather than mechanical precision. When he speaks, it is with a voice that commands respect through authority rather than fear through distortion. This is a Darth Vader who has retained his humanity even as he has embraced the darkness. The first test of Vader's new capabilities comes sooner than expected. Intelligence reports indicate that a group of Jedi survivors has established a hidden enclave on the forest world of Dendris, in the Outer Rim territories. They are attempting to rescue Force-sensitive children and rebuild the Order in secret. This cannot be allowed to continue. Vader's ship, a modified Star Destroyer that serves as both transport and mobile command center, arrives in the Dendris system under cover of a sensor-dampening field. The planet below is lush and green, its vast forests providing perfect cover for anyone seeking to hide from Imperial detection. But Vader's enhanced sensitivity to the Force, unimpeded by life support systems or constant pain, allows him to sense the Jedi presence immediately. There are 5 of them, he reports to the Imperial officers assembled in the ship's briefing room. 2 masters, 2 knights, and 1 Padawan. They have established their base in the ancient ruins approximately 300 kilometers from the planetary capital. Captain Darren, the ship's commanding officer, studies the tactical displays with a frown. My lord, if we deploy the full assault force, we risk destroying valuable archaeological sites. The Emperor has expressed interest in preserving certain ancient ruins for his collection. Vader's helmet turns toward the captain, and even through the mask, his displeasure is evident. I will handle this personally, Captain. Have a shuttle prepared, but keep the fleet in orbit. These Jedi are not to escape under any circumstances. The descent to Dendris takes place under cover of darkness, Vader's shuttle landing in a clearing several kilometers from the Jedi Enclave. As he steps onto the forest floor, Vader removes his helmet, allowing the planet's fresh air to fill his lungs directly. This simple act, impossible for the more damaged version of himself that might have been, fills him with a sense of freedom and power. The approach to the Jedi base is methodical and silent. Vader moves through the forest like a shadow, his Force abilities allowing him to sense and avoid the various detection devices and traps that the survivors have placed around their perimeter. His enhanced physical capabilities, courtesy of his cybernetic legs, allow him to traverse the difficult terrain without making a sound. As he draws closer to the ruins, Vader can sense the individual Force signatures more clearly. The 2 masters are familiar to him from the Clone Wars, Stas Ali and Coleman Trebor, both members of the Jedi Council who somehow survived Order 66. The Knights are unknown to him, likely survivors from the Temple Purge who managed to escape the slaughter. The Padawan's presence is strong but unfocused, suggesting someone very young and recently discovered to be Force-sensitive. The ruins themselves are ancient and magnificent, carved from the living rock of a massive cliff face. Intricate patterns and symbols cover every surface, telling the story of a civilization that reached for the stars long before the Republic was even dreamed of. The Jedi have chosen their hiding place well. The site's historical significance makes it unlikely that the Empire would simply blast it from orbit. Vader's approach is detected when he is still 50 meters from the main entrance. The ancient stone suddenly erupts as 2 lightsabers pierce through it, followed by their wielders. Stas Ali and Coleman Trebor emerge from concealment, their weapons ready, their faces grim with determination. Anakin Skywalker, Stas Ali says, her voice carrying a mixture of sadness and resolve. Or do you prefer your new title, Lord Vader? Vader's response is to ignite his crimson lightsaber, the blood-red blade casting eerie shadows across the ancient stones. Anakin Skywalker was weak. He is dead. No, Coleman Trebor interjects, his own green blade humming as he assumes a defensive stance. I can sense him still, buried beneath your anger and pain. The dark side has not completely claimed you yet. For a moment, the 3 warriors stand motionless, the tension between them so thick it seems to distort the air itself. Then Vader speaks, his voice carrying none of the mechanical distortion that might have made this conversation feel less personal. You speak of someone who no longer exists. I am Darth Vader, and you are trespassers in my Emperor's domain. The battle that follows is swift and brutal. Both Jedi Masters are skilled and experienced, but they are fighting defensively, trying to protect the others hidden within the ruins. Vader, by contrast, fights with focused aggression, his enhanced physical abilities allowing him to press attacks that would have been impossible for a more damaged version of himself. Stas Ali attempts to use her superior speed to flank Vader, but his cybernetic legs allow him to pivot and counter faster than she anticipated. Their lightsabers clash in a shower of sparks, red against blue, as they test each other's defenses. She is skilled in Ataru, the acrobatic lightsaber form, but Vader's combination of human intuition and mechanical precision proves overwhelming. Meanwhile, Coleman Trebor engages from the opposite side, his Shicho techniques providing a solid foundation against Vader's aggressive assault. For a few moments, the two Jedi manage to coordinate their attacks, forcing Vader to fight defensively. But as the duel continues, it becomes clear that they are outmatched. Vader's finishing move is as elegant as it is deadly. He feints towards Stas Ali, drawing Coleman Trebor's attempt to protect her, then spins and strikes both opponents simultaneously. His lightsaber passes through Stas Ali's defenses and pierces her heart, while the force-enhanced kick from his cybernetic leg sends Coleman Trebor crashing into the stone wall with lethal force. As the two masters fall, Vader stands among the ancient ruins, his breathing steady and controlled. There is no mechanical rasping, no sound of failing life support systems, just the quiet confidence of a predator who has eliminated his prey. The two remaining knights emerge from the ruins, their faces set with desperate courage. They know they cannot win, but they will fight to give the Padawan time to escape. Vader respects their bravery, even as he prepares to destroy them. "You cannot protect them all," Vader states, his voice carrying across the clearing. "The Jedi Order is finished. Surrender now, and your deaths will be quick." "A Jedi's strength flows from the Force," one of the knights replies, his lightsaber steady in his hands. "And the Force will never serve the dark side completely." Vader's response is a slight smile, visible now that his helmet is removed. We shall see. The second duel is even more one-sided than the first. The two knights fight bravely, but they lack the experience and skill of the masters who fell before them. Vader's enhanced capabilities allow him to engage both simultaneously, his lightsaber work precise and deadly. Within minutes, both knights lie dead among the ancient stones. As Vader approaches the ruins to search for the Padawan, he senses something unexpected. Fear, yes, but also determination. And something else, a Force signature that seems familiar, though he cannot place it immediately. The Padawan emerges from the deepest part of the ruins, a young Twi'lek girl who cannot be more than 14 years old. Her lightsaber, clearly a training weapon, wavers in her grip as she faces the Dark Lord who has just killed her teachers. "I am Ayla Secura," she announces, her voice trembling but determined. "Padawan learner of Master Quinlan Vos, you killed my friends, but you will not make me fall to the dark side." Vader pauses at the name Quinlan Vos. He remembers the maverick Jedi Master from the Clone Wars, a man who walked the line between light and dark more closely than most of his colleagues would have been comfortable with. If this girl is his Padawan, she may prove more dangerous than her age suggests. "Your master is not here to protect you, young one," Vader observes, his lightsaber held in a casual but ready position. "You face me alone." "I am never alone," Isla replies, her confidence growing as she speaks. "The Force is my ally, and a powerful ally it island." The words are clearly a quote from her training, but she speaks them with such conviction that Vader finds himself curious rather than dismissive. This girl has potential, perhaps more than her teachers realized. The question is whether that potential can be turned to serve the Empire's needs. Instead of immediately attacking, Vader chooses to test her abilities. He reaches out with the Force, not to harm, but to probe her defenses. The response surprises him. Her mental shields are strong and well constructed, showing a level of training that goes beyond her apparent age and experience. "Impressive," Vader admits. "Your master taught you well. But training and experience are not the same thing." He moves forward, his lightsaber describing lazy arcs through the air as he tests her reactions. Ayla responds with textbook-perfect defensive positions, her form flawless but lacking the improvisational elements that come only from real combat experience. As their lightsabers meet for the first time, Vader is struck by the girl's raw power. She is strong in the Force, stronger than many knights he has faced. With proper training, she could become a formidable ally or a dangerous enemy. The question is, which path she will choose. "I can sense your anger," Vader says as they circle each other, lightsabers ready. "Your friends are dead because of me. Why do you not seek revenge?" Ayla's response shows wisdom beyond her years. Anger leads to hate, and hate leads to suffering. "I will not become what you are, no matter what you do to me. Even if I told you that your precious Master Voss is alive, hidden away in one of the Emperor's prisons, even if I offered you the power to free him, if only you would serve the Empire." For a moment, Ayla's composure cracks, and Vader can sense the conflict within her. But she quickly regains control, her lightsaber steady once again. "You lie," she states firmly. "Master Voss died defending the temple on Coruscant. I felt his passing through the Force." Vader's smile is both predatory and genuinely impressed. "Perhaps, or perhaps what you felt was his capture, not his death. The Force can be unclear in times of great trauma." The psychological warfare is having its intended effect. Ayla's stance wavers slightly as doubt creeps into her mind. Vader presses his advantage, not with his lightsaber, but with words carefully chosen to exploit her emotional vulnerabilities. "Join me, young Secura. Help me bring order to this chaotic galaxy. In return, I will help you find the truth about your master's fate." For a long moment, the offer hangs in the air between them. Then, Ayla's expression hardens with resolve, and she brings her lightsaber up in a classic Jedi salute. "I choose the light," she declares. Whatever the cost, the final phase of their duel is brief but intense. Ayla fights with the desperate courage of someone who knows they cannot win but refuses to surrender. Her technique is flawless, her connection to the Force strong, but she lacks the experience to match Vader's combination of skill and enhanced physical capabilities. When the end comes, it is swift and decisive. Vader's lightsaber slips past her defenses and strikes her down, but not before she manages to wound him with a force push that sends him staggering backward. As she falls, her last words are a whispered promise. The light will return, standing alone among the bodies of the 5 Jedi. Vader finds himself strangely affected by the encounter. The girl's unwavering dedication to her principles, even in the face of certain death, reminds him of something he thought he had lost forever. For just a moment, he questions whether the path he has chosen is truly the right one. But the moment passes, and Vader activates his communicator to signal for extraction. The mission has been completed successfully, though not without cost. He has eliminated a potential threat to the Empire, but he has also been reminded of the strength that can come from holding fast to one's beliefs, regardless of the consequences. During the flight back to his Star Destroyer, Vader removes his helmet and stares out at the stars beyond the shuttle's viewport. His reflection in the transparisteel shows a face that is scarred, but still recognizably human, still capable of expression and emotion. This is both a strength and a vulnerability. As today's encounter has demonstrated, the report he files with Emperor Palpatine is factual but incomplete. He describes the elimination of the Jedi survivors and the destruction of their hidden base. But he says nothing about the doubts that the young Padawan's words have planted in his mind. Some thoughts, he realizes, are too dangerous to share. Even with his master, weeks pass, and Vader's reputation as the Emperor's enforcer grows throughout the galaxy. His enhanced capabilities make him more effective than even Palpatine had hoped, able to travel quickly between missions and adapt to changing circumstances without being limited by life support requirements. But with this effectiveness comes a growing sense of independence that the Emperor finds both useful and troubling. During a private audience in the Imperial Palace on Coruscant, Palpatine probes carefully at his apprentice's state of mind. The throne room is vast and imposing, designed to make visitors feel small and insignificant. But Vader stands before the Emperor's throne with his helmet removed, his scarred face visible and unashamed, meeting his master's gaze directly. "You have exceeded my expectations, Lord Vader," Palpatine begins, his voice carrying just the right note of paternal approval. "Your recent successes have eliminated several significant threats to our new order." "Thank you, Master," Vader replies, his voice calm and controlled. "I serve the Empire's interests to the best of my abilities." There is something in the phrasing that catches Palpatine's attention: the Empire's interests rather than your will or your commands. It is a subtle distinction, but one that suggests his apprentice is thinking beyond simple obedience. "Tell me, my friend," Palpatine continues, shifting to a more personal tone, "how do you find your new existence? Are you satisfied with what you have become?" Vader considers the question carefully before answering. Unlike the broken, dependent creature that Palpatine had originally envisioned, this version of his apprentice is capable of genuine reflection and analysis. "I am stronger than I was as Anakin Skywalker," Vader states finally. "The dark side has given me power beyond what the Jedi ever offered. But strength alone is not enough. True power requires of perspective." "Oh?" Palpatine's interest is genuine now. "And what perspective have you gained, my apprentice?" "The galaxy is vast and complex, Master. Our enemies are not merely those who oppose us with lightsabers and blasters. They include poverty, ignorance, and the chaos that comes from lack of central authority. If we are to create lasting peace, we must address these underlying issues." Palpatine's yellow eyes narrow slightly as he processes this response. This is not the mindless destroyer he had planned to create, but something far more sophisticated and potentially dangerous. A Sith apprentice who thinks strategically about governance and social order rather than simply accepting orders is both more valuable and more threatening. An interesting perspective, the Emperor muses. And how would you suggest we address these underlying issues? Vader's answer reveals how far his thinking has evolved beyond simple enforcement of Imperial will. Efficient resource distribution, educational programs that promote Imperial values while eliminating superstition and rebellion, infrastructure development that makes resistance logistically impossible while improving quality of life for compliant populations. The conversation continues for another hour, with Vader outlining a comprehensive vision for Imperial governance that goes far beyond the simple, fear-based control that Palpatine typically employs. It is sophisticated, well-reasoned, and effective. It is also independent thinking of the highest order, which makes it dangerous to an emperor who prefers obedient servants to capable partners. As Vader leaves the throne room, Palpatine remains seated, his fingers steepled, as he considers the implications of what he has just heard. His apprentice is becoming more powerful and more independent with each passing day. This evolution must be carefully managed to ensure that Vader remains a tool rather than becoming a rival. Meanwhile, Vader returns to his private quarters in the Imperial Palace, a suite of rooms that reflects his unique position in the Empire's hierarchy. Unlike the sterile, mechanical environments that might have been necessary for a more damaged version of himself, these chambers are designed for comfort and efficiency rather than medical support. The main room features a meditation chamber where Vader can commune with the dark side without the interference of life support systems. The walls are lined with holographic displays showing intelligence reports from across the galaxy, allowing him to stay informed about developing situations that might require his attention. As he settles into meditation, Vader finds his thoughts turning once again to the encounter with young Aayla Secura. Her unwavering commitment to the light side of the Force had been impressive, even admirable in its way. But it had also been ultimately futile. She had died for her principles, accomplishing nothing except providing him with a moment of doubt. Or had she accomplished more than that? As Vader delves deeper into his meditation, he begins to sense something disturbing. The girl's words had planted seeds of doubt that are growing stronger rather than weaker with time. Questions about the path he has chosen, about whether the Empire's methods are truly justified by their results. These thoughts are dangerous, he knows. The dark side feeds on certainty, on the absolute conviction that one's actions are necessary and justified. Doubt weakens that conviction and opens the door to the very emotions and attachments that the Sith philosophy rejects. But the thoughts persist, and with them comes a gradual shift in how Vader approaches his duties. During his next mission, hunting down a group of smugglers who have been running supplies to rebel sympathizers, he finds himself questioning whether summary execution is truly necessary for such relatively minor offenses. The smuggler's ship is small and fast, but it cannot outrun an Imperial Star Destroyer. When they are finally cornered in the asteroid field of the Farlax sector, their captain attempts to negotiate rather than fight. "Lord Vader," Captain Malthorn says over the comm system, his voice carefully controlled despite the obvious fear beneath it. "We're simple traders, just trying to make a living. Whatever intelligence thinks we've done, I'm sure we can work something out." In the past, Vader would have simply ordered the ship destroyed as an example to others. But now, he finds himself curious about these people. and their motivations. He orders them brought aboard for interrogation rather than immediate execution. The three smugglers, Captain Malthorn, his co-pilot Wexley, and their mechanic, a young Celestin named Nien, are brought before Vader in one of the Star Destroyer's interrogation chambers. They stand with the nervous dignity of people who know they are probably going to die but refuse to beg for their lives. "You have been trafficking in illegal goods," Vader states, his helmet removed so they can see his face clearly. "The penalty for such activities is death." "With respect, my lord," Captain Malthorn replies, "we've been carrying medical supplies to worlds that the Empire has overlooked in its resource distribution efforts. Children were dying." Vader studies the man carefully, using the Force to probe his emotions and intentions. What he finds surprises him. There is no deception here, no hidden agenda. These people genuinely believe they are doing the right thing, even at the cost of their own lives. "Medical supplies?" Vader repeats thoughtfully. "For children who would otherwise die. And you see no conflict between this charitable work and your defiance of Imperial law. Law should serve justice, my lord," Wexley interjects, earning sharp looks from his companions. "When it doesn't, sometimes good people have to make hard choices." The statement hangs in the air like a challenge, and Vader finds himself considering it seriously rather than simply dismissing it as treasonous nonsense. These smugglers are not motivated by greed or power, but by compassion for the suffering of others. In another context, such motivation might be considered noble. "You realize," Vader says slowly, "that your activities undermine the Empire's authority, that others might follow your example, leading to chaos and civil disorder." "Yes, my lord," Captain Malthorn acknowledges. "But we also realize that children don't choose their political allegiances. They just want to live." For a long moment, Vader considers his options. Imperial protocol demands that he execute these criminals as an example to others. But his growing understanding of governance suggests that martyring them might actually strengthen resistance movements rather than deterring them. "You will be released," Vader announces finally, "on one condition. You will register your ships with Imperial Customs and submit to regular cargo inspections. In exchange, you will be granted special licenses to carry humanitarian supplies to underserved worlds." The three smugglers stare at him in shock, clearly unable to believe what they are hearing. Even the Imperial officers present seem surprised by this departure from standard procedure. "My lord?" Captain Malthorn ventures hesitantly. "You're letting us go?" "I am recruiting you," Vader corrects. "The Empire requires capable pilots and ships for legitimate humanitarian missions. You have demonstrated both skill and proper motivation for such work." As the smugglers are processed for release and registration, Vader retreats to his private quarters to consider what he has just done. By any measure, his actions represent a significant departure from Imperial doctrine. He has shown mercy where strength was expected, pragmatism where ideology was demanded, but the results cannot be argued with. Within weeks, news of Vader's humanitarian recruitment program spreads throughout the galactic underworld. Smugglers and independent traders begin approaching Imperial customs officials directly, offering their services in exchange for legitimate contracts. The flow of supplies to underserved worlds increases dramatically, while actual criminal activity decreases as former lawbreakers are brought into the legal economy. Emperor Palpatine's reaction to these developments is complex. On one hand, The program's success cannot be denied. It has improved imperial public relations while reducing criminal activity. On the other hand, it represents independent thinking and policy innovation from his apprentice, which sets dangerous precedents. During their next private meeting, the Emperor addresses the issue directly. Your humanitarian initiative has been unexpectedly successful, Lord Vader. Tell me, what inspired this departure from conventional enforcement methods? Vader's response is carefully considered. Efficiency, Master. Destroying resources and personnel that could be turned to the Empire's benefit seemed wasteful. Better to convert our enemies than simply eliminate them. An interesting philosophy, Palpatine muses. Though, I wonder if you considered the long-term implications. Showing mercy to lawbreakers might be interpreted as weakness by our enemies. Only by those who mistake compassion for weakness, Vader replies. True strength lies in knowing when to use force and when to use other tools. A surgeon's scalpel is not weak because it cuts precisely rather than brutally. The medical metaphor is apt and reveals how Vader's thinking has evolved. He no longer sees himself merely as an instrument of destruction, but as a tool for shaping the galaxy according to rational principles. This evolution is both impressive and terrifying from Palpatine's perspective. As months pass, Vader's influence on Imperial policy grows subtly but steadily. His recommendations for administrative reforms are implemented across multiple sectors, improving efficiency and reducing corruption. His tactical innovations in dealing with resistance movements prove highly effective, often converting former enemies into Imperial assets. But perhaps most significantly, his presence begins to change how other Imperial officers approach their duties. The Dark Lord, who shows mercy to smugglers and implements humanitarian programs, is not the mindless destroyer they had expected. Instead, he becomes a model of intelligent, principled leadership that attracts loyalty through respect rather than fear. This shift does not go unnoticed by the Rebel Alliance. In hidden bases across the galaxy, intelligence analysts struggle to understand what appears to be a fundamental change in Imperial strategy. The Empire is becoming more effective, not through increased brutality, but through more sophisticated governance. On the Rebel base hidden in the Atrivis sector, Mon Mothma convenes an emergency session of the Alliance leadership to discuss these disturbing developments. The secure conference room is filled with holographic representations of Rebel leaders from across the galaxy. Their faces grim as they consider intelligence reports that challenge their fundamental assumptions about their enemy. The reports are consistent across multiple sectors. Admiral Akbar reports, his translator rendering his Mon Calamari speech into basic. Imperial forces under Vader's direct influence are employing new tactics that emphasize conversion rather than destruction. They're winning hearts and minds rather than simply crushing opposition. General Rekan nods grimly. It's happening in the core worlds too. Imperial popularity is actually increasing in systems where Vader has implemented his reforms. People are beginning to see the Empire as a force for positive change rather than oppression. But surely this is just propaganda, Bail Organa interjects. The Empire cannot have truly changed its fundamental nature, can't it? Mon Mothma's question carries a weight that silences the room. What if Vader represents a genuine evolution in Imperial thinking? What if they're learning from their mistakes and becoming more effective rulers as a result? The implications are sobering. The Rebel Alliance, has always relied on imperial brutality to fuel recruitment and maintain public support. If the empire begins governing more effectively and humanely, the moral justification for rebellion becomes much more complex. We need more intelligence. Princess Leia states firmly from her position at Alderaan. We need to understand exactly what's happening within the imperial hierarchy. Is this change coming from Vader alone? Or does it represent a broader shift in policy? The decision is made to deploy their most capable intelligence assets to gather information about Vader's activities and influence within the Empire. What they discover over the following months paints a picture of an organization in transition, pulled between the Emperor's traditional iron-fisted approach and his apprentice's more nuanced methods. The tension between these competing philosophies comes to a head during the crisis on Ryloth. The planet's Twi'lek population has been increasingly restive under Imperial rule, with several armed resistance cells conducting sabotage operations against Imperial installations. Traditional Imperial doctrine would call for massive retaliation, possibly including orbital bombardment of suspected rebel strongholds. But when Vader arrives to handle the situation personally, he takes a dramatically different approach. Instead of immediately deploying overwhelming force, he calls for a meeting with the planet's traditional clan leaders, offering to negotiate a solution that addresses their legitimate grievances while maintaining Imperial authority. The meeting takes place in the ancient council chambers of Lesu, Ryloth's capital city. The room is filled with Twi'lek clan leaders, their expressions ranging from curious to openly hostile as they wait to see what the Dark Lord of the Sith will offer them. Vader enters without his helmet, allowing the Twi'leks to see his scarred but human face. This simple gesture immediately changes the dynamic in the room. Instead of facing a mechanical monster, they find themselves dealing with a person who has clearly suffered and survived. Leaders of Ryloth. Vader begins, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber. I have come to discuss the future of your world within the Empire. I understand that there have been tensions between your people and Imperial administrators. Cham Syndulla, the most prominent of the Twi'lek leaders, leans forward in his seat. Tensions is one word for it. Lord Vader. Strip mining our lands, enslaving our people, and destroying our culture might be more accurate terms. Instead of responding with anger or threats, Vader nods thoughtfully. Your grievances are noted and, in many cases, justified. The question is whether we can find a path forward that serves both your people's needs and the Empire's interests. The negotiations that follow are unlike anything the Twi'leks expected. Vader proves to be knowledgeable about their culture and history, respectful of their traditions, and genuinely interested in finding mutually beneficial solutions. He proposes a new governance structure that grants Ryloth significant autonomy in exchange for continued loyalty to the Empire. Under the proposed arrangement, Twi'lek clan leaders would maintain authority over local affairs, while Imperial presence would be limited to defense and trade facilitation. The strip mining operations would be restructured as joint ventures, with profits shared between Imperial companies and Twi'lek communities. Most importantly, the slave raids that have plagued the planet would be permanently ended. You're offering us what amounts to home rule, Cham Syndulla observes, his tone carefully neutral. Why? What does the Empire gain from such generous terms? Vader's answer reveals the strategic thinking that has been developing since his transformation. Stability, productivity, and genuine loyalty rather than resentful compliance. a prosperous Ryloth that supports the Empire willingly, is worth far more than a devastated world held by force. The agreement reached on Ryloth becomes a model for imperial relations with other species and cultures throughout the galaxy. Vader's approach proves so successful that even Emperor Palpatine is forced to acknowledge its effectiveness, though he remains concerned about the long-term implications of his apprentice's growing independence. The success on Ryloth also brings Vader to the attention of the few remaining Jedi scattered across the galaxy. For the first time since the Purge began, some begin to question whether the Dark Lord might be capable of redemption. This possibility is both hopeful and dangerous, as it challenges fundamental assumptions about the nature of the dark side and those who serve it. One such Jedi is Master Kukruk, a Wifid who survived Order 66 and has been living in exile on the ice world of Korriban. When news of Vader's reforms reaches him through underground networks, he makes a decision that will have far-reaching consequences. He sends a message to Vader directly, proposing a meeting to discuss the possibility of peace between the Empire and the remaining Jedi. The message is transmitted through a complex network of intermediaries and encrypted channels, eventually reaching Vader during his return journey from Ryloth. The content is brief, but significant. Lord Vader, I am Master Kukruk of the Jedi Order. Your recent actions suggest that you may be open to alternatives to the endless cycle of violence between our peoples. If this is true, I propose a meeting to discuss possibilities for coexistence. The choice is yours. Vader stares at the message for a long time, his mind racing with the implications. Contact with a surviving Jedi Master represents a significant departure from his role as the Emperor's enforcer. But it also offers an opportunity to test whether his evolving philosophy can bridge even the deepest ideological divides. After careful consideration, Vader sends a reply agreeing to the meeting, but on his terms. The location will be the ancient Sith Academy on Korriban, a choice that sends its own message about who holds power in this potential negotiation. The meeting will be private, with no record kept and no witnesses present. Kukruk's response is prompt and positive. He agrees to the location and conditions, adding only a request that both parties come armed, but with the understanding that violence will be a last resort rather than a first option. The journey to Korriban takes Vader through some of the most desolate regions of the galaxy, past worlds that have been scarred by millennia of conflict between Jedi and Sith. As his ship approaches the ancient homeworld of the dark side, he finds himself contemplating the cyclical nature of this conflict and whether it truly must continue indefinitely. Korriban itself is a testament to the power and ultimate futility of the dark side. The planet's surface is covered with the ruins of ancient Sith temples and academies, monuments to power that could not ultimately save their builders from death and obscurity. The red-orange sky seems to burn with perpetual sunset, casting everything in the color of dried blood. Vader lands his ship near the largest of the ruined academies, a massive structure that once housed thousands of Sith apprentices and their masters. The buildings are mostly intact, their stone construction having weathered millennia better than the metal and technology of more recent civilizations. Master Kukruk is waiting in what was once the Academy's main meditation chamber, a vast circular room with a domed ceiling that focuses acoustic energy toward the center. The Wifid Jedi is exactly as Vader remembers him from the Clone Wars. Tall, powerfully built, with the characteristic tusks and fur of his species. His lightsaber hangs at his side, but his hands are empty. and open, Lord Vader. Kukruk greets him formally as he enters the chamber. Thank you for agreeing to this meeting, Master Kukruk. Vader replies with equal formality, removing his helmet as he approaches. Your proposal intrigued me. Speak plainly. What is it you hope to accomplish here? The Wifid studies Vader's face carefully, noting the scars and the obvious humanity beneath them. I hope to determine whether the man who showed mercy to smugglers and negotiated peace on Ryloth might be willing to consider a different path than the one that has led to so much death and suffering. The path I have chosen has brought order to the galaxy, Vader responds, but without the absolute conviction that such words would have carried in the past. The Jedi way led only to corruption and civil war, did it? Kukruk challenges gently. Or did the Jedi way become corrupted by our involvement in politics and war? Perhaps both our orders lost sight of our true purposes. The conversation that follows spans hours, touching on philosophy, history, and the nature of the Force itself. Both men approach the discussion with genuine intellectual curiosity rather than the desire to score debating points. They explore questions that neither has considered deeply before. Whether the light and dark sides of the Force are truly incompatible, whether peace might be possible between those who serve different aspects of the Force's will. You suggest coexistence, Vader observes as their discussion deepens. But the fundamental philosophies of Jedi and Sith are contradictory. How can there be peace between those who seek to preserve life and those who embrace death as a tool of power? Kukruk's response is thoughtful and carefully considered. Perhaps the answer lies not in changing our fundamental beliefs, but in recognizing that the galaxy is large enough for multiple approaches to Force use. The Jedi need not approve of Sith methods, nor the Sith of Jedi philosophy. But we might agree to limit our conflicts to words rather than lightsabers. An interesting proposal, Vader admits. But you assume that such restraint is possible for those who have tasted the full power of the dark side. The Sith philosophy does not encourage compromise. And yet, you are here, engaging in compromise by the very act of talking rather than fighting. Perhaps you are more capable of growth than your philosophy suggests. The words hit Vader with unexpected force, highlighting the contradiction between his actions and his stated beliefs. He has indeed been compromising, showing mercy, seeking solutions that benefit multiple parties rather than simply advancing Sith interests. But this recognition brings with it a troubling question. If he is not acting as a true Sith, then what is he becoming? You suggest that I am not what I claim to be, Vader says slowly. But if I am not Darth Vader, Sith Lord, then who am I? Perhaps, Kukruk suggests gently, you are someone new, someone who has experienced both light and dark, who understands the costs of both compassion and power. The galaxy has never seen such a being before, someone who might bridge the gap between these ancient enemies. The possibility is both exhilarating and terrifying. Vader has defined himself by his service to the dark side, by his rejection of everything the Jedi represented. But if that identity is no longer accurate, if he has become something unprecedented, then all his assumptions about his purpose and destiny must be reconsidered. Their meeting concludes without immediate resolution, but with an agreement to continue communication. Kukruk will reach out to other surviving Jedi to gauge their willingness to consider alternatives to perpetual conflict. Vader will continue his work within the Empire, gradually introducing reforms that reduce the need for violent suppression of dissent. As Vader prepares to leave Korriban, Kukruk offers a final observation. The Force works through all living beings. Lord Vader, perhaps it has brought us together for a purpose neither of us fully understands yet. The journey back to Imperial space gives Vader time to process everything that was discussed on Korriban. The meeting has opened possibilities he had not previously considered, but it has also created new uncertainties about his identity and purpose. These doubts are both liberating and dangerous. Liberating because they suggest alternative paths forward. Dangerous because doubt is antithetical to the absolute certainty that Sith philosophy demands. Upon his return to Coruscant, Vader finds a message waiting from Emperor Palpatine, requesting an immediate audience. The timing cannot be coincidental. Somehow, the Emperor has learned of the meeting with Kukruk, either through surveillance or through his manipulation of the dark side of the Force. The throne room feels different as Vader enters for what he senses may be a crucial confrontation with his master. The massive chamber seems more oppressive than usual, the shadows deeper and more threatening. Emperor Palpatine sits motionless on his throne, his yellow eyes fixed on his approaching apprentice with an intensity that suggests barely controlled fury. "My young apprentice," Palpatine begins, his voice deceptively calm. "You have been busy during your recent travels. Tell me, how did you find Korriban?" The question confirms Vader's suspicions about surveillance, but he shows no surprise or concern. Educational, Master. The ruins serve as an effective reminder of the ultimate fate of those who fail to adapt to changing circumstances. Indeed, Palpatine's smile is cold and predatory. "And what lessons did you learn from your educational discussions with Master Kukruk?" Now Vader allows himself to show mild surprise, though internally he is calculating the implications of his master's knowledge. "You are well informed. As always, Master. Yes, I met with the Jedi. I found his perspectives illuminating." Illuminating. Palpatine tastes the word as if it were poison. "And what illumination did this Jedi provide that you could not gain through proper Sith teachings?" Vader considers his response carefully. The honest answer would reveal the extent to which his thinking has evolved beyond traditional Sith philosophy, which would likely trigger a confrontation he is not yet prepared for. But dishonesty would betray the very principles he has been developing. He suggested that perpetual conflict between Force users might not be inevitable. Vader states finally that different philosophies might coexist without requiring the destruction of one or the other. The temperature in the throne room seems to drop as Palpatine rises from his seat, Force lightning beginning to crackle around his fingertips. "And you found this suggestion appealing?" "I found it worthy of consideration," Vader replies steadily, his hand moving instinctively toward his lightsaber hilt. "If our goal is galactic stability and prosperity, then reducing sources of conflict would advance that goal." "Our goal," Palpatine snarls, his voice rising, "is the dominance of the dark side of the Force and the destruction of the Jedi Order." "You speak like a politician rather than a Sith Lord." "Perhaps because effective governance requires more than simply destroying one's enemies," Vader responds, his own voice carrying a dangerous edge. "The galaxy is vast and complex, Master. It cannot be ruled through fear alone." The words hang in the air between them like a declaration of war. Both men know that they have reached a fundamental parting of ways. that the philosophical differences between them can no longer be bridged through compromise or misdirection. "You disappoint me, Lord Vader," Palpatine says, his voice returning to its characteristic soft menace. "I had hoped that your transformation would create a perfect servant of the dark side. Instead, it seems to have created something unprecedented and potentially treacherous." "I serve the Empire's interests, as I always have," Vader replies, but his lightsaber is now in his hand, though not yet ignited. "If you perceive that service as treachery, perhaps the fault lies not in my actions, but in your expectations." "Treason," Palpatine whispers, and the word seems to echo through the vast chamber. "You speak treason against your master and your empire." "I speak truth," Vader counters, igniting his crimson blade in a snap, hiss that fills the chamber with red light, something that has been in short supply in this room for far too long. The battle that erupts is unlike any that has taken place in the Imperial throne room before. Emperor Palpatine unleashes the full fury of his mastery of the dark side, filling the air with torrents of Force lightning that turn the chamber into a blazing storm of electrical energy. But Vader, his enhanced physical capabilities allowing him to move with unprecedented speed and agility, proves more resilient to the assault than Palpatine expected. Where a more damaged version of Vader might have been overwhelmed by the electrical attack, this Vader can withstand the punishment while pressing his own assault. His lightsaber work is precise and deadly, each strike calculated to exploit the gaps in his master's defenses. His cybernetic legs provide stability and power that allow him to maintain his footing despite the Force-enhanced attacks being thrown at him. "You cannot defeat me!" Palpatine shrieks as their battle ranges across the throne room, destroying priceless artifacts and artwork in its wake. "I made you! I can unmake you!" "You made a slave," Vader replies, his blade weaving through the Emperor's defenses with increasing effectiveness. "I have become something else entirely." The duel's climax comes when both combatants simultaneously attempt to end the fight with overwhelming force. Palpatine channels every ounce of his dark side mastery into a massive lightning attack that lights up the entire chamber, while Vader responds with a combination of lightsaber work and Force manipulation that redirects much of the energy back at its source. The resulting explosion of Force energy destroys much of the throne room and leaves both fighters wounded and exhausted. But when the smoke clears, it is Vader who stands victorious, his lightsaber at the fallen Emperor's throat. "You have learned well," Palpatine gasps, his aged features twisted with pain and fury. "But killing me will not give you what you seek. The galaxy needs a strong hand to guide it, and you are not ready for such responsibility." "Perhaps not," Vader acknowledges, his breathing steady despite the exertion of their battle. "But I am ready to try something different than what you have offered." The killing stroke is swift and decisive, ending decades of Sith domination over the galaxy. As Emperor Palpatine dies, his final expression is one of surprise rather than fear. Surprise that his carefully crafted apprentice has become something beyond his control or understanding. In the aftermath of the Emperor's death, Vader finds himself in the unprecedented position of having to decide the future of the galactic government. The Imperial military and bureaucracy look to him for leadership, but he has no desire to simply replace one dictator with another. Instead, he makes a series of decisions that surprise everyone. including himself. The first announcement comes within hours of Palpatine's death, broadcast throughout the galaxy on all Imperial communication networks. Vader, his helmet removed to show his human face, speaks directly to the trillions of beings under Imperial rule. Citizens of the Empire, he begins, his voice carrying clearly across the vastness of space. Emperor Palpatine is dead, killed in defense of the principles that should guide any just government. His reign of fear and oppression ends with him. The announcement sends shockwaves throughout both Imperial and Rebel territories. On countless worlds, beings gather around holovid displays to hear what the galaxy's most feared enforcer will say next. "I do not claim succession to the Imperial throne," Vader continues, his words carefully chosen for maximum impact. "The Empire will be reformed, not according to the whims of any single individual, but according to the will of its citizens and the principles of justice and prosperity for all." The specific reforms he announces are sweeping and unprecedented. The Imperial Senate will be restored to full authority, with representatives elected by the populations of their respective worlds, rather than appointed by Imperial governors. The military will be restructured as a defensive force rather than an instrument of conquest and oppression. Most significantly, the systematic persecution of non-human species and force-sensitive individuals will end immediately. On the Rebel base at Yavin 4, the leadership gathers in emergency session to process these stunning developments. The conference room buzzes with confused conversations as beings struggle to understand what appears to be the voluntary dismantling of the very system they have been fighting to destroy. It has to be a trap, General Recon insists, his paranoia fueled by years of fighting Imperial deception and manipulation. No one voluntarily gives up absolute power. Vader must be planning something. But what if he isn't? Princess Leia asks, her voice cutting through the arguments. What if these reforms are genuine? What does that mean for our cause? Mon Mothma's response is both thoughtful and troubled. If the reforms are real, then we face a crisis of purpose. The Alliance was founded to restore the Republic and end Imperial tyranny. If the Empire transforms itself into something resembling the Republic, what justification do we have for continued armed resistance? The debate continues for hours, touching on fundamental questions about the nature of government, the legitimacy of rebellion, and the possibility of peaceful transition to a more just system. Some argue for continued resistance until the Empire is completely dismantled, while others suggest that negotiation and cooperation might achieve their goals more effectively than continued warfare. Meanwhile, on Imperial-controlled worlds throughout the galaxy, the reaction to Vader's announcements is mixed, but generally positive. Populations that have suffered under decades of oppression cautiously welcome the promised reforms, while Imperial officials and military officers struggle to adapt to their changing roles and responsibilities. The transformation is not without its challenges and setbacks. Some Imperial governors resist the new policies, leading to armed conflicts that require Vader's personal intervention. Certain rebel cells continue fighting, unable to believe that their enemy has genuinely changed, and there are assassination attempts from various factions seeking to either restore the old order or accelerate the pace of change. But gradually, the galaxy begins to see evidence that the reforms are genuine and substantial. Elections are held on dozens of worlds, with results that are respected even when they go against Imperial preferences. Trade restrictions are lifted, allowing greater economic freedom and prosperity. Most visibly, the massive military buildup that characterized Palpatine's reign is reversed, with Star Destroyers being converted to civilian use or decommissioned entirely. The moment that convinces many skeptics comes when Vader makes an unprecedented journey to Alderaan for a face-to-face meeting with Bail Organa and other prominent rebel leaders. The symbolism is powerful. The Dark Lord of the Sith traveling as a diplomatic envoy, rather than a conqueror to negotiate with those who have been his enemies. The meeting takes place in the royal palace of Alderaan, in the same conference room where Bail Organa has hosted countless planning sessions for rebel operations. But instead of holographic displays showing Imperial fleet movements and target priorities, the walls now show proposed constitutional frameworks and economic development plans. Vader enters the room without his helmet, flanked by a small security detail that is armed but clearly non-threatening. His presence still commands attention and respect, but the aura of menace that once surrounded him has been replaced by something more complex. Authority tempered by wisdom, strength guided by purpose rather than anger. Senator Organa. Vader greets his host formally, offering a slight bow that acknowledges the older man's status and dignity. "Thank you for agreeing to this meeting, Lord Vader." Bail responds with equal formality, though his voice carries undertones of lingering suspicion. "Your invitation was unexpected, as are many of your recent actions. The negotiations that follow are intense and sometimes heated, but they are conducted with mutual respect and a genuine desire to find common ground." Vader outlines his vision for a reformed galactic government that combines the stability and efficiency of Imperial administration with the democratic principles and individual freedoms that the rebellion has fought to restore. "You're asking us to trust you," Princess Leia observes during one particularly crucial exchange. "To believe that the man who enforced Palpatine's will for decades has genuinely changed his fundamental beliefs." Vader's response is honest and direct. "I am asking you to judge me by my actions rather than my past. The reforms I have implemented are real and verifiable. The elections have been conducted fairly, the military has been restructured, and the persecution of minorities has ended. What more evidence do you require?" "Time," Mon Mothma interjects. "Change of this magnitude cannot be measured in months or even years. It requires decades of consistent behavior to prove that it represents genuine transformation rather than temporary expedience. Time I can provide." Vader agrees. "But I would ask that you also consider the alternative. If these reforms fail, if the galaxy reverts to civil war and chaos, how many more will die while we wait for perfect certainty about my motivations?" The argument is compelling, and it gradually wins over even the most skeptical rebel leaders. Over the course of several days, they hammer out a framework for cooperation that addresses the concerns of both sides, while providing a path toward genuine galactic peace. The agreement includes provisions for joint oversight of the reformed Imperial government, with rebel representatives given positions in key ministries and departments. The military restructuring will be monitored by independent observers to ensure that Imperial forces remain defensive rather than aggressive. Most importantly, there will be a gradual transition toward full democratic governance, with a new constitution drafted by representatives from across the galaxy. As news of the Alderaan Accord spreads throughout the galaxy, reactions are overwhelmingly positive. Worlds that have been devastated by decades of war begin to rebuild, their populations hopeful for the first time in a generation. Trade routes reopen, refugees return to their homelands, and the massive resources previously devoted to warfare are redirected toward education, healthcare, and infrastructure development. But perhaps the most significant change is in how Force-sensitive individuals are treated throughout the galaxy. Vader's personal experience with both the Jedi and Sith traditions allows him to craft policies that protect Force users while preventing the kind of extremism that has led to so much conflict in the past. The new Jedi Order that emerges under these policies is fundamentally different from its predecessor. Rather than being separated from the rest of society as monk warriors, the new Jedi are encouraged to integrate with civilian communities while using their abilities in service of peace and justice. They are taught both light and dark side techniques, but within a framework that emphasizes balance and responsibility rather than absolute adherence to either philosophy. Master Kakruk becomes one of the first instructors in this new order, working alongside other survivors to develop training programs that acknowledge the complexity of the Force, while avoiding the dogmatism that contributed to the old order's downfall. The curriculum includes meditation and lightsaber combat, but also diplomacy, engineering, medicine, and other practical skills that allow Jedi to serve their communities in multiple ways. Vader himself takes on a teaching role, sharing his hard-won understanding of the dangers and temptations of the dark side. His classes are among the most challenging and sought after in the new academy, as students recognize the unique value of learning from someone who has experienced both damnation and redemption. The dark side is not evil in itself, he explains to a group of advanced students during one memorable lesson. It is simply power without wisdom, strength without compassion. The danger lies not in feeling anger or fear, but in allowing those emotions to control your actions. One student, a young Bothan named Koth Milan, raises his hand with a question that gets to the heart of the new philosophy. Master Vader, if the dark side isn't evil, why did the old Jedi Order forbid its use? Vader's answer reveals the depth of his evolved understanding. Because they confused prohibition with protection. They believed that by forbidding their students to experience certain emotions or use certain techniques, they could prevent them from falling to corruption. But prohibition without understanding creates vulnerability, not strength. He gestures to his scarred face as he continues. I fell to the dark side, not because I was taught its techniques, but because I was not taught to understand and master the emotions that drive those techniques. Fear, anger, hatred, these are part of the human experience. Denying them gives them power over us. The new approach proves remarkably effective. The students who graduate from the Reformed Academy are more balanced and resilient than their predecessors, capable of facing darkness without being consumed by it. They serve throughout the galaxy as teachers, healers, negotiators, and protectors, earning respect and trust rather than the fear and suspicion that often surrounded the old Jedi Order. As years pass, the galaxy settles into a new equilibrium that few could have imagined during the dark days of the Empire's reign. The reformed government proves both stable and responsive to its citizens' needs. Economic prosperity spreads to previously neglected regions as resources are allocated based on need rather than political favoritism. Most importantly, the cycle of conflict between Force users appears to have been broken, replaced by cooperation and mutual understanding. The ultimate test of this new order comes when Vader's own past catches up with him in an unexpected way. Intelligence reports indicate that Luke Skywalker and Leia Organa, the children he believed had died with Padme, are not only alive, but have become prominent figures in the Rebel Alliance. The discovery shakes him to his core, forcing him to confront the deepest levels of his guilt and regret. The revelation comes during a routine intelligence briefing in Vader's private offices on Coruscant. Admiral Ozzel, one of the few Imperial officers who has adapted well to the new order, presents a report on Rebel leadership that includes detailed profiles of key figures. This is particularly interesting, my lord. Ozzel notes as he displays a holographic image of a young man with distinctive features and force sensitivity. Luke Skywalker appears to be self-taught in lightsaber combat, but his techniques show remarkable similarity to traditional Jedi methods. Our analysts believe he may have had access to Jedi training materials, or possibly even a surviving master. Vader stares at the image in shock, his carefully maintained composure cracking as he recognizes features that mirror his own at that age. The name Skywalker, the force sensitivity, the age, all of it points to an impossible truth that he had never dared to hope for. And this one, Ozzel continues, seemingly oblivious to his superior's distress. Princess Leia Organa of Alderaan. She's shown remarkable leadership ability and strategic thinking beyond her years. There are also unconfirmed reports of force sensitivity, though she apparently hasn't received formal training. The second image hits Vader like a physical blow. Leia's features are different from Luke's, but there is something in her expression, in the way she carries herself, that reminds him powerfully of Padme. The possibility that his children not only survived, but grew up to become the kind of strong, principled individuals their mother would have been proud of, fills him with emotions he hasn't experienced in decades. That will be all, Admiral. Vader manages, his voice carefully controlled. Please leave the reports for my review. Alone in his office, Vader studies the images and files with growing certainty. These are his children, raised by others, fighting against the very regime he helped to build. The irony is both painful and perfect. His greatest failure as a father has led to his greatest success as a human being, as his children have become exactly the kind of people the galaxy needs. The decision to make contact is not made lightly. Vader understands that revealing himself as their father could complicate the political situation and potentially undermine the peace process he has worked so hard to establish. But the need to connect with the family he thought he had lost forever ultimately overrides these practical considerations. The meeting is arranged through intermediaries, with both Luke and Leia given the choice of whether to attend. The location is neutral space, a small space station in the Corellian system that serves as a waypoint for traders and diplomats. The setting is deliberately low-key and non-threatening, designed to encourage honest conversation rather than confrontation. When Vader arrives at the designated meeting room, he finds both of his children waiting for him. Their faces mixtures of curiosity, suspicion, and carefully controlled emotion. Luke appears more open, his naturally trusting nature evident despite the circumstances. Leia is more guarded, her political training helping her maintain diplomatic composure even in this highly personal situation. Lord Vader. Luke greets him formally as he enters the room. Thank you for agreeing to this meeting. We have questions. As do I, Vader responds, removing his helmet as he approaches. The gesture of vulnerability is intentional. meant to signal his willingness to be open and honest with them. Though I suspect we may have more in common than any of us initially realized. For a moment, they simply look at each other. Three people bound by blood and separated by circumstance, trying to navigate the complex emotions of their reunion. Then Leia speaks, her voice carefully controlled, but with an undertone of deep feeling. "You're our father." It's not a question, but a statement, delivered with the certainty of someone who has already processed the available evidence and reached an inevitable conclusion. "Yes," Vader acknowledges simply, "though I understand that parentage involves more than mere biology. You were raised by others, shaped by different influences. I have no claim on your loyalty or affection." Luke's response reveals both his youth and his fundamental decency. "But you do have a claim on our understanding. We want to know who you really are, beyond the legends and propaganda. We want to know who our Father Island." The conversation that follows spans hours, touching on painful memories and difficult truths. Vader tells them about their mother, about his fall to the dark side, about the guilt and regret that have driven his recent transformation. He speaks honestly about his crimes and the suffering he has caused, but also about his hopes for redemption and his desire to build a better galaxy for future generations. Luke and Leia, in turn, share their experiences growing up without their parents, their gradual discovery of their Force sensitivity, and their involvement in the rebellion. They speak about their adoptive families with love and respect, but also acknowledge the void left by not knowing their biological parents. "I always wondered," Luke admits during one particularly emotional exchange, "what my father was like. Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru told me he was a good man who died in the war, but I could sense there was more to the story." "There was," Vader confirms, his voice heavy with regret. "Your father was indeed a good man, but he was also weak and foolish. He allowed his love for your mother to be twisted into possessiveness, his desire to protect into a willingness to destroy. He made choices that led to suffering for countless innocents, but he also made choices that led to change." Leia observes, her political acumen evident in her analysis. "The reforms you've implemented, the peace you've helped to create, these are the actions of someone who has learned from his mistakes." Perhaps Vader allows, "I hope that someday you might be able to see me not as the man who fell to darkness, but as the one who found his way back to the light, though I understand if that day never comes." The meeting ends with no dramatic reconciliation or immediate resolution of their complex relationship, but it does establish a foundation for future communication and, perhaps more importantly, mutual understanding. Luke and Leia leave with a deeper appreciation for the complexities of their father's journey, while Vader gains something he thought he had lost forever: a connection to family and a hope for genuine redemption. In the months that follow, their relationship develops gradually through continued meetings and correspondence. Luke proves particularly receptive to his father's teachings about the Force, recognizing the value of learning from someone who has experienced both its light and dark aspects. Leia remains more cautious, but gradually comes to appreciate the man her father has become, if not necessarily forgiving the man he once was. The development of these family relationships becomes a powerful symbol throughout the galaxy of the possibility for redemption and reconciliation. If the Dark Lord of the Sith can reconnect with the children he wronged, if a family torn apart by war and ideology can find common ground, then perhaps any conflict can be resolved through understanding and mutual respect. This symbolism becomes particularly important as the galaxy continues to evolve toward the new order that Vader has helped to establish. The constitutional convention he promised takes place on Coruscant, with representatives from hundreds of worlds working together to create a framework for democratic governance that respects both individual rights and collective needs. The document that emerges from these deliberations, known as the Galactic Charter, establishes principles that will guide the reformed government for generations to come. It guarantees fundamental rights for all sentient beings, regardless of species, homeworld, or force sensitivity. It creates a balance of power between central authority and local autonomy that allows for unity without uniformity. Most importantly, it establishes mechanisms for peaceful resolution of conflicts that make future wars less likely. Vader's role in the new government is carefully defined to provide continuity and stability while preventing the concentration of power that led to tyranny under Palpatine. He serves as Chancellor for a fixed term, with specific responsibilities and clear limitations on his authority. Most significantly, he is bound by the same laws and oversight mechanisms that govern all other officials, ensuring that no one is above the legal framework that protects citizens' rights. The success of this new system is measured not in military victories or territorial expansion, but in more subtle indicators of a healthy society. Education levels rise throughout the galaxy as resources previously devoted to warfare are redirected towards schools and universities. Scientific research flourishes as collaboration replaces competition between worlds. Cultural exchange increases as barriers between species and regions are lowered. Perhaps most importantly, a new generation begins to emerge that has no memory of the dark days of empire and rebellion. For these young beings, the idea that Force users might be persecuted or that entire species might be enslaved seems as antiquated as any other historical atrocity. They take for granted the freedoms and opportunities that their parents fought to secure. As Vader watches this new generation come of age, he finds a sense of satisfaction that has long eluded him. The galaxy he is helping to shape is not perfect. No system of government or society ever could be, but it is just and humane in ways that seemed impossible during the dark days of Sith rule. On a clear evening on Coruscant, as the sun sets behind the towering spires of the galactic capital, Vader stands on a balcony of the Chancellor's residence, looking out over a city that has been transformed. The massive military parades and propaganda displays that once filled the streets have been replaced by parks and cultural centers. The oppressive atmosphere of fear and surveillance has given way to the bustle of free commerce and open debate. Luke joins him on the balcony, now a respected Jedi Master in his own right, his lightsaber hanging casually at his side rather than hidden in fear of persecution. The relationship between father and son has evolved into something neither could have imagined during their first difficult meeting. Not the simple affection of an untroubled family, but the deeper respect of two people who understand each other's struggles and growth. "Any regrets?" Luke asks, his question encompassing not just the day's events, but the entire transformation that has brought them to this moment. Vader considers the question seriously before answering. "Regrets about the path that led me here? Many. Regrets about where we have arrived? None. The galaxy is a better place because you chose to change," Luke observes. And there is no flattery in his statement, only honest assessment. That has to count for something. "Perhaps," Vader allows. though I sometimes wonder whether the man who made those choices was truly me, or someone I became by necessity. Leia's voice comes from behind them as she joins them on the balcony, having finished her duties in the Senate for the day. Does it matter? You are who you choose to be, not who you once were. The simple wisdom of her statement strikes Vader with particular force. She is right. Of course, identity is not fixed by past actions, but shaped by current choices. He is no longer the broken young man who fell to the dark side on Mustafar, nor the mechanical enforcer of tyranny that Palpatine created. He has become something new, something that the galaxy has never seen before. A Sith Lord who chose redemption over revenge, a former enemy who became a bridge to peace. As the three of them stand together watching the lights of the galactic capital come alive in the gathering dusk, they represent something unprecedented in the history of the galaxy. A family reunited, a society transformed, and a future built on hope rather than fear. The stars above them shine with the same light they have for millennia, but the civilization beneath them has been fundamentally changed. The cycle of conflict that has defined galactic history for generations has been broken, replaced by a system that channels disagreement into constructive debate rather than destructive warfare. This is the galaxy where Vader never needed the suit, where physical limitations did not drive him deeper into darkness, where the capacity for growth and change remained intact despite the influence of the dark side. It is a testament to the power of choice over circumstance, of hope over despair, of the light that can emerge even from the deepest darkness. In this reality, Darth Vader's greatest victory was not over his enemies, but over himself. And in achieving that victory, he helped create a galaxy where such personal triumphs could inspire transformation on the largest possible scale. The legacy he leaves behind is not one of fear and oppression, but of the possibility that anyone, no matter how far they have fallen, can find their way back to the light. The transformation of the galaxy continues for decades, with Vader's influence extending far beyond his official role as Chancellor. His unique perspective, shaped by experiences with both ultimate power and profound loss, guides the development of institutions that prove remarkably resilient and adaptable. The constitutional framework he helped establish becomes a model for other regions of the galaxy, spreading principles of democratic governance and individual rights to previously isolated systems. In the Outer Rim territories, worlds that had never known stable government begin to flourish under the protection and guidance of the reformed galactic administration. Tatooine, Vader's homeworld, becomes a symbol of this transformation. The desert planet's strategic location makes it a hub for legitimate trade rather than criminal activity, and substantial investment in moisture farming technology and infrastructure development improves life for its hardy inhabitants. Standing in the same garage where he once worked as a slave child, Vader watches as young mechanics and engineers collaborate on projects that would have seemed like fantasy during his youth. The building has been converted into a technical academy, training the next generation of innovators and problem solvers. The irony is not lost on him that his greatest contribution to this world may be ensuring that no other child experiences the slavery he once endured. Master Vader, one of the students, approaches him, a young human girl whose enthusiasm reminds him of his own curiosity at that age. My project team has been working on atmospheric processors for desert worlds. We think we can increase agricultural output by 30% while reducing water consumption. The innocence and hope in her voice fills Vader with something he had almost forgotten how to feel. Genuine pride in the accomplishments of others. "Show me," he says, allowing her to lead him to her workstation, where a group of diverse young beings have created innovations that surpass anything the Empire's militaristic research programs ever achieved. These moments of connection with ordinary beings throughout the galaxy have become increasingly important to Vader as he ages. The physical enhancements that saved his life after Mustafar have also extended his lifespan, allowing him to witness the long-term consequences of the choices he made. Unlike the original timeline where Vader's suffering might have consumed him entirely, this version finds peace in service to others, rather than domination over them. The new Jedi Order continues to evolve under his guidance, and that of other survivors like Master Kukruk. The temple complex built on Coruscant incorporates architectural elements from both Jedi and Sith traditions, symbolizing the integration of different approaches to Force philosophy. Students learn to understand and manage their emotions rather than simply suppressing them, creating Jedi who are more resilient and better equipped to serve in the complex modern galaxy. During one of his regular teaching sessions, Vader addresses a question that cuts to the heart of the philosophical revolution he has helped to create. A young Zabrak student named Savage raises his hand with obvious nervousness. "Master Vader, the old texts say that fear leads to the dark side. But you teach us that fear can also protect us from real dangers. How do we know which is which?" Vader's answer draws on decades of hard-won wisdom. Fear becomes dangerous when it controls our actions rather than informing them. When I was young, I feared losing those I loved so much that I was willing to commit any atrocity to prevent that loss. The fear became my master rather than my advisor. He gestures to the diverse group of students before him, representing dozens of species and backgrounds. True wisdom lies in acknowledging our fears while choosing our responses based on principles rather than panic. You will all face moments when you are afraid. The question is not whether you will feel fear, but whether you will let that fear guide you toward justice or towards selfishness. The philosophical framework that emerges from these teachings spreads throughout the galaxy, influencing not just Force users, but ordinary citizens who find value in the balance between emotion and reason, between individual needs and collective responsibility. Universities and schools incorporate these principles into their curricula, creating generations that are better equipped to navigate complex moral and ethical challenges as Vader's official term as Chancellor draws to a close. Preparations begin for the first fully democratic transition of power in galactic history. The process itself becomes a celebration of how far civilization has advanced, with candidates from multiple worlds and species competing based on their ideas and qualifications rather than their military strength or political connections. The farewell ceremony takes place in the same Senate chamber where Palpatine once declared the birth of the Empire. But instead of fearful applause from intimidated senators, the gathering radiates genuine respect and gratitude for the man who chose transformation over tyranny. Representatives from across the galaxy rise to acknowledge his service, many sharing personal stories of how his reforms affected their worlds and peoples. Luke and Leia sit in the front row, their own children beside them, representing the next generation of Skywalkers, who will grow up in a galaxy where their family name is associated with redemption rather than destruction. The sight fills Vader with a contentment that no amount of power or conquest could have provided. When Vader rises to deliver his final address as Chancellor, the chamber falls silent with respectful attention. His words, carried across the galaxy by holographic transmission, become one of the most quoted speeches in galactic history. "My fellow citizens," he begins, his voice carrying the authority earned through service rather than demanded through fear. "When I first took on the responsibilities of leadership, I was a very different person than I am today. I believed that strength meant the ability to impose one's will on others, that peace could be achieved through the elimination of opposition." He pauses, allowing his gaze to sweep across the assembled representatives. "I have learned that true strength lies in the courage to change. That lasting peace comes not from defeating our enemies, but from understanding them. The galaxy we have built together is not perfect, but it is just. It is not complete, but it is constantly improving." His conclusion resonates with themes that have defined his transformation. "To those who will lead after me, I offer this counsel. Never forget that power is a tool, not a destination. Use it to serve others, not to elevate yourself. Remember that today's enemy may become tomorrow's ally if approached with wisdom rather than hatred. And above all, never stop believing in the possibility of redemption. For all of us are capable of becoming better than we were." The standing ovation that follows lasts for nearly 10 minutes. But it is not the fearful applause that once greeted imperial proclamations. This is genuine appreciation from beings who have experienced firsthand the benefits of principled leadership and democratic governance. In the years that follow his retirement from official duties, Vader continues to serve the galaxy in different ways. He travels extensively, visiting worlds that were once battlegrounds to see how they have rebuilt and prospered. He writes extensively about governance, philosophy, and the nature of the Force, contributing to academic and popular understanding of these complex topics. Most importantly, he remains available as an advisor and mediator when conflicts arise that threaten the stability of the reformed government. His unique perspective and moral authority make him an effective negotiator in situations where traditional diplomacy might fail. The ultimate testament to his transformation comes when historians begin analyzing his legacy. The man once known as the galaxy's most feared enforcer is remembered instead as the architect of its greatest period of peace and prosperity. Children learn about him not as a cautionary tale about the dangers of power, but as an example of the possibility for growth and redemption. On Naboo, in the same meadow where Anakin and Padme were married so many years ago, a memorial stands to all those who lost their lives during the dark years of civil war and imperial oppression. But it is not a monument to defeat or tragedy. Instead, it celebrates the triumph of hope over despair, of love over hatred, of the light that can emerge from even the deepest darkness. Vader visits this memorial often in his later years, sometimes alone, sometimes with Luke and Leia and their families. During one such visit, as he stands before the stone bearing Padme's name, Leia asks him a question that has long been on her mind. "Do you think she would be proud of what you became?" His answer comes without hesitation, carrying the certainty of someone who has found peace with his choices. "I think she would be proud of what we all became. The galaxy she dreamed of, just peaceful, free, that is what we built together." As the sun sets over the peaceful meadows of Naboo, casting long shadows from the memorial stones. 3 generations of Skywalkers stand together in comfortable silence. The galaxy around them hums with the quiet prosperity of a civilization that has learned to channel its conflicts into constructive change rather than destructive warfare. This is the world that emerged when Darth Vader never needed the suit, when physical limitations did not drive him into deeper darkness, when the capacity for growth and redemption remained intact despite the influence of the dark side. It is a testament to the power of choice over circumstance, of compassion over cruelty, of the endless possibility for transformation that exists within every sentient being. The legacy of this alternative path echoes across the generations, inspiring countless others to believe that no fall is too great, no darkness too deep, no mistake too severe to prevent the possibility of redemption. In a galaxy that had known too much war and too little hope, the story of Anakin Skywalker's return from the darkness becomes a beacon that guides civilization toward its highest aspirations. Years later, as Vader's physical form finally begins to show the accumulated weight of his extraordinary life, he reflects on the choices that led him down this unprecedented path. The scars from Mustafar remain visible on his face, but they no longer represent shame or limitation. Instead, they serve as reminders of the moment when compassion triumphed over abandonment, when Obi-Wan's love proved stronger than his disappointment. In his final years, Vader establishes a foundation dedicated to helping others overcome their own darkness. Whether it stems from addiction, trauma, or the simple human tendency towards selfishness and cruelty, the Skywalker Foundation becomes one of the galaxy's most respected charitable organizations, funding everything from rehabilitation programs for former criminals to educational initiatives that teach conflict resolution and emotional intelligence. The Foundation's motto, inscribed in the lobby of its headquarters on Coruscant, captures the essence of Vader's transformation. No one is beyond redemption. No choice is irreversible. No darkness is permanent. These words, spoken by someone who had experienced the depths of evil and climbed back to the light, carry a weight and authority that resonates across all species and cultures. When Vader finally passes away peacefully in his sleep, surrounded by his children and grandchildren, the galaxy mourns, not the death of a tyrant, but the loss of a teacher, a leader, and ultimately, a symbol of hope. His funeral becomes a celebration of transformation rather than a ceremony of endings, with beings from across the galaxy sharing stories of how his example inspired them to choose growth over stagnation, forgiveness over revenge, love over fear. The memorial erected in his honor on Coruscant bears a simple inscription that captures the essence of his remarkable journey. Anakin Skywalker, father, teacher, chancellor, and proof that the light side of the Force flows strongest through those who have known darkness. Below these words, visitors often leave their own messages of hope and transformation, creating an ever-growing testament to the power of redemption. That's our theory. The Star Wars universe is a galaxy filled with exciting stories and possibilities, and we love exploring them. If you want to accompany us on this journey to a galaxy far, far away, then please like, share, and subscribe to our channel.